Welcome to Three Count Commentaries, in which we will talk the Forbidden Door Go Home show, and the Savior has arrived. They must have changed some of the commas on the checks. Anyway, I got to eat some crow, so we're going to talk about that later. We're also going to do the Forbidden Door predictions, because I will not spend any more time on this than I actually have to, so I'm not doing another video. Alright, so this one's probably going to be pretty long. But first, news and notes. And right now, the only thing I really feel like is worth talking about is Chris Jericho's comment about MJF. It is absolutely one of the most homerish things I have ever seen. So Jericho says, quote, and he said this in an interview with Alex McCarthy. After 30 years in this business, I've learned that if it doesn't have anything to do with me, I stay the hell out of it. I really don't care. If I had an angle with MJF, or if I was involved with contracts, I'd be much more interested in it, but I tend to stay out of it. Only thing I will say is a contract is a contract. If every athlete in every sport wanted to be paid more now, then what's the point of having a contract? You know what I mean? We'll see how it plays out. Then he says later, MJF is 25. He has a lot to learn. He's not as good as he thinks he is, and like I said, it really is nothing to do with me, but I'm sure he'll be back. 18 months is a long time to stay at home, and that's Tony Khan's prerogative. You're under contract. You want to stay at home? You can stay at home and not get paid, and that's what happens. We see it happen in other companies, and that's just how it goes. If you didn't expect that, then why did you sign your contract in the first place? All right. So Jericho says that MJF ain't as good as he thinks he is, which is absolutely humorous, considering Jericho hitched his wagon to MJF for like a full year. Didn't he hang around with MJF for like a year, palling around with that kid? And now he's saying that he's not as good as he thinks he is? Well, look, either they're working everybody, or Jericho's oh boy, he turned tail on MJF really quick. Now, on its surface, I tend to agree with Jericho. You do sign a contract, you should be held to that contract. That being said, if you outperform the contract and there's trust in the relationship between the two parties, you should be able to get a better contract. You know, everybody has said essentially that Vince is the kind of guy that if you outperform your contract, he will change it. Right? If you want to get paid more money and you have outperformed your contract, he will rip it up and create a new one. JR, he said he'd do it. Cornette has said he does it. Other people have said that they do it. Why won't Tony Khan do this? Why will not he just not pay MJF whatever MJF wants? What is the big deal? You know, here's the thing. This is the thing about having individual contracts that I really think that is important for wrestlers and anybody. That's why I object to unions. Nobody can negotiate on your behalf because nobody knows what you're worth but you. Right? So when MJF first came to AEW, he was only worth a certain amount of money. Mainly because he had never been on national TV before. He had no real experience in episodic television. He had raw talent but hadn't really developed it yet. Over the course of those 3 years, he has inarguably developed far more than his original contract. Now I have heard that he got a pay boost at one point between then and now, but apparently it's not enough, and he wants another one. My whole thing is, I don't know what the details of those contracts are, whether he wants more time or Tony wants more time, however that goes. It's irrelevant. The big picture here is that Tony Khan is being cheap, and he just won't pay the guy who is inarguably the guy who is growing the brand, the guy who could have been the face of the brand, especially from a heel perspective. He just won't pay the guy. I just can't believe that they're having money issues, that this is a problem. Now, maybe he's asking for way too much money, which could be the case. And I could then agree and say, you know what? Maybe you're asking for too much. Let's say he's asking for $4 million. Okay, that's too much. All right. He's not a perennial main event guy, but he is one of your top guys. You want to leave some wiggle room for him to grow even more. Because if you give the guy $4 or $5 million now, what is he going to be worth at 30? 10 million? 15 million? Like, you'd be talking about, paying him like he's a Major League Baseball player at that point. So maybe not. But you can give him something. It's like, come on, you're really going to run the risk of this guy jumping ship to WWE? You really going to run that risk? If this is legit and not a work, by the way. Which it all could be at work. Jericho is two-faced. We already knew that. But I'm more focused on Tony Khan being cheap. To me, in the contract negotiations, it's all about either you're worth the money or you're not. Bottom line. You're worth the money that you're asking for or you're not. If you're not, then the business should be able to say, look, we can't justify paying you X, Y, and Z, and here's why. If he's asking for an exorbitant amount of money, that should be the argument. He's asking for too much. Which, I perfectly understand. Even if a guy like MJF is very good, even I will say, no, he's asking for too much. Even I can say that. But I don't see him asking for, goddamn Brock Lesnar money. I can see him, saying, hey, I just want a little bit more cheese on the cracker. Come on. What's it worth to you anyway, billionaire? Maybe another bonus or two. But this whole thing is really ridiculous. I think Jericho is really sad for saying, look, ain't got nothing to do with me, but here's my opinion anyway. It's like, come on. He could have just said no comment. Ain't got nothing to do with me. MJF's a good talent or whatever the case may be. But having guys like Jericho and Punk tell him, oh, well, leave then. Do whatever you want to do. You think the grass is greener? You think you're so good? Go ahead. That's not conducive to a great locker room. Imagine if some WWE guys had come out and said, well, Sasha Banks, if she thinks she's that awesome, maybe she should just stay at home. No, they wouldn't do that. Imagine if somebody did that. Roman Reigns would have come out after Sasha Banks walk out and be like, could you imagine not wanting to lose to, somebody who makes more money than you do? So I can understand, Sasha's more over, more talented in wrestling, but, you have to respect the checks. WCW used to have this crazy rule. Somebody who makes $500,000 to $100,000 does not do the job for somebody who makes $200,000. I don't exactly agree with that because there's going to be times where you need to maneuver that. But in the situation where you don't have a lot of time with Ronda, Sasha will be okay. It's one pin. She's eating 100 pins. She'll be all right. So just imagine if some WWE guys had come out and said some shit like this. It's all you would hear about. It's all you would hear about. If somebody had criticized the walkout, that's all you would hear about is how some bootlicker is defending the company from the walkout. But MJF is, as far as we know, staying home. I'm just operating as if this is facts. And then you got people attacking him. And nobody's saying anything. Nobody's like, well, Jericho, you shouldn't have said that. Or, Jericho, what a two-faced bootlicker. Nothing. Just, it's gone by the wayside. Nobody said anything about it. How embarrassing. And it just goes to show the amount of interest people have in anti-WWE stuff more than anything else. For another little piece of business, Leo Rush. Leo Rush talked about the LBO Leo thing. I don't have an article to read. I just saw the headline. Essentially, he said that he didn't come up with the character. That's why it didn't come across well on TV, because he didn't understand it. And that he didn't choose the character and it was thrust upon him. In other words, they gave him a gimmick. LBO Leo wasn't his gimmick. They gave it to him. He said this in an interview. Now, I'm not one to take everything Leo Rush says at face value. I think that the whole LBO Leo thing was an extension of what he was doing in MLW, which was something similar. And he wasn't calling himself LBO Leo, but he was doing the whole big money musician thing. Now, the whole stock, all that crap, that sounds like some shit Tony Khan came up with. Because I don't think Leo Rush plays the stock market. At least not that closely. But it was similar to what he was doing in MLW. The idea that they got a guy like Leo Rush, slapped him with a gimmick that didn't get over, that nobody understood. If Vince McMahon had done that, that's all you would hear about. How they gave him a stupid gimmick, yada yada yada. Or if he didn't get fired in a traditional sense, but he was not welcome back after what he said about Big Swole. Could you imagine WWE not welcoming somebody back and having that tied into some racial drama? He never stopped talking about it. It's very, very strange, the stuff that AEW is allowed to get away with. And their audience is just laps it up. It's okay. It's like, nah, man. Now, I don't care that much about Leo Rush. I don't even care about the whole LBO Leo thing. He tried to make it work and it didn't work. That's how gimmicks go. I'm just saying, most people are not talking about that. In fact, I saw another new interview with Leo Rush where they're not even discussing that subject. They're talking about his WWE run. I'm like, he ain't been in WWE in 3 or 4 years. He was just in AEW not a couple of months ago. Shouldn't that be the fresh news we talking about here? No? Okay. Let's go on to Dynamite, because we got to get through Forbidden Door, and I got to go to work. Okay, so it's going to be a tough one, okay? It's going to be a long night. All right, so Danielson starts the show. He said it's a great week to be an AEW fan. I disagreed. He then said that Zack Sabre Jr. is going to be paid by Jericho to prove that he's the best wrestler in the world. He was excited for both Dynamite, Blood and Guts, and Forbidden Door, but he's not been medically cleared to compete at either show. Then said his mind is 100%, so don't worry about him coming back. Then he said that the good news is that Eddie Kingston called him a judgmental prick, and he's right, because he has high standards. And that he's found the one person that's going to take his place at both events. And he said he came out of the heel tunnel, so he's not going to tell you who it is. And then Zack Sabre Jr. came out, because we had to know that Zack Sabre Jr. was there. I mean, the literally human linguini showed up on our screens. Linguini with a bad haircut. I'm telling you, there's very few wrestlers that I legitimately like. Sometimes I exaggerate how much I don't like a wrestler like Natalya. Like, I mostly don't care about Natalya. I just mostly see Natalya as you would see wallpaper, or stains on something. Like, I don't pay that much attention to Natalya, really, unless it's stains somewhere. Like, it stains on an old shirt. Let's put it like that. Stain on an old shirt that you're walking around the house in. You really don't care. It may have a little hole in it or something. Like, that's how Natalya. She's like a little hole on an old shirt. Who cares? But Zack Sabre Jr. Talk about burnt peanuts. I do not like that Zack Sabre Jr. I do not like him. He's not quite CM Punk level, but not far off. I mean, I just don't see any redeeming qualities about Zack Sabre Jr. He's like the perfect heel for me. He's the perfect bad guy for me. Like, when you have a bad guy in a wrestler, whatever, bad guy in a comic book or something like that, they should have zero redeeming qualities. Now, in modern media, we know that they try to make them funny and charming, or, good looking and handsome and all that kind of stuff. But the real bad guys have no redeeming qualities. They're not handsome. They're not rich. They're not wealthy. They're not charming. They're not funny. They don't have a good sense of humor, or they don't dress well. For me, Zack Sabre Jr. is that perfect heel. He just has zero redeeming qualities. He can't cut a promo. He doesn't have a look. His matches are boring. I see zero appeal in Zack Sabre Jr. But that's not money-making appeal. It's just, I want to turn my TV off when he's on it appeal. And yet, here he is again, getting another paycheck. We'll go through who I think is going to be during our predictions. All right. Moxley cut a promo, says sometimes it's business, sometimes it's personal. And that Blood and Guts is going to be personal. And that at the Anarchy in the Arena, they learned that the Jericho Appreciation Society can fight, but let's see if they can survive. And he said that Blackpool Combat Club can survive, and they have survived. And that he hates Jericho. And Sunday he's going to transform into what he had always been, which is the Ace. Because on Sunday, it's personal between him and Tanahashi. and that in the ring he has no respect for anyone. This leads us to the main event, where Moxley and Tanahashi defeated Lance Archer and Chris Jericho. There's a pretty scary spot in that match where Tanahashi did a crossbody, I think it was, on Jericho, and Jericho's knee buckled. And I was like, oh Lord, hopefully he doesn't get hurt. Considering just about every other person in the business is hurt now. I think these guys just want to take the summer off. It's impossible to me to believe that Bryan, Punk, Rhea Ripley, Cody, and all these people all got hurt within the span of the same couple of weeks. That's impossible. It's impossible. Like, if you got injured in February and you're still out, okay, I can understand. But all these people get injured within the span of the next couple of weeks. I think they're just trying to get time off. They're just trying to get the summer off. I'm calling you bluff. You ain't injured. Y'all about to go pal around somewhere. Anyway, I thought Jericho was going to be hurt, but he was fine. Tanahashi pins Archer, who was the designated jobber of this team, and they win. So Moxley and Tanahashi wins a match nobody cared about, and a match that didn't matter. So Moxley and Tanahashi, and they stare at one another in the ring. Eddie Kingston comes down to the ring. He starts attacking Jericho. The post-match brawl ensues, in which the Jericho Appreciation Society and the whatever hodgepodge of Blackpool Combat Club and Kingston and his fellas, they all fight in a very, honestly, boring, they're just slapping each other in the rib cage. It looks very bad. The funniest thing to me was how pathetic Sammy Guevara looked in this whole thing. Like, he's hitting people and they're not selling his punches. He doesn't even know whether he's coming or going. He's completely directionless in this thing. He got hit in the face with a chair, and that was pretty much the only thing he was probably supposed to do. But he was still hanging around. The second thing that was funny to me is how Minoru Suzuki sauntered out down the ramp and started fake fighting with Wheeler Yuta. It didn't look convincing and it didn't look good. He didn't get any reaction either, which was incredibly upsetting because I thought Suzuki was super over. I've seen Suzuki live and he's got huge reactions, but I guess it was more his theme song than actually him. Not really. He got a pretty good reaction during the match too, but nobody seemed to care that he was out there today. So, meanwhile, Moxley and Tanahashi are just staring at each other. I think they may have traded some punches or whatever, but they ended up staring at each other to try to make this match feel big. And it's like, okay, look, here's a mistake. There's a thing, it's called perspective. If you're doing something that you want people to think are important, you kind of should either calm down everything around it or separate it. You can't have chaos and these two guys staring at each other because some people are going to be more interested in the chaos. There's guys fighting out here. So now you asking people to go back and forth and split their attention. Like, how about some perspective where these guys fight off into the back while Moxley and Tanahashi are still in the ring staring at one another? Or they are part of the brawl. And sort of like Hogan and Warrior, they bounce back to back and then they turn around and stare at one another. But they were staring at each other as people were fighting outside the ring and hitting each other with chairs and shit. And I'm like, and the camera is cutting away from their stare down. For starters, do we really need a stare down? Like, it might not be necessary, but I'm okay with it. But let's focus on that. Let's tell the story of that. And let that other story be what it is. But this is AEW. They expect you to have ADD because everybody has ADD in AEW. You ask them to try to let people soak something in. They're like, what are you talking about? That's slow. That's boring. It's like, how about letting people sit with the moment for a little while so it can build up and we can see if somebody's going to actually do something. Who's going to be the first to throw a punch? Who's going to back down first or whatever the case may be. But we didn't get that. We instead just got brawling and those two guys just standing there. And they did a little something, then they just went back to standing there. It was stupid. All right, Orange Cassidy and Roppongi Vice defeat the United Empire, which consists of Will Ospreay and Aussie Open. Aussie Open, I don't have no idea who those guys are. They look like Joe Gacy's Druids, as far as I was concerned. Will Ospreay sold a stunner by laying on his back with his arms straight up in the air. I was like, that's how serious he's going to take this match. Because it's a joke. It was silly. Silly selling in wrestling, it's alright, but it was very silly. Jeff Cobb marched to the ring after the match and held back his mates in United Empire. They all lined up and were threatening to jump Orange Cassidy and Roppongi Vice. Then FTR came out there to provide backup. FTR got a pretty big pop, which of course they deserved. I don't like them being involved with this, but I mean, what can I do? You know, it is what it is. But I at least it's not a big 10-man tag like I thought it was going to be. It's going to be Will Ospreay versus Orange Cassidy. I'm not saying that's better. I'm just saying it's not the big scrum that I thought it was going to be, which I guess technically makes it better. All right. So Jay Lethal, Sanjay Dutt, and that big tall Indian dude, what's his name? Satnam. He was there. Sanjay Dutt ran his mouth about some stuff. I had no idea what the fuck he was talking about or why Sanjay Dutt is on my screen. Sanjay Dutt, he's nearing Zack Sabre Jr. territory to me. I don't see any redeeming qualities in Sanjay Dutt. He looks weird. He sounds weird. And he's boring. And he's been on TNA and all other wrestling shows, and I've never heard anybody say they were a fan of Sanjay Dutt. Not a single person. I'm pretty sure now somebody's going to go in the comment section. I was a huge fan of Sanjay Dutt back when he was doing the prayer thing. I'm like, what time he was doing the prayer thing? Hey, fuck Sanjay Dutt, all right? I was in the middle of something. I was talking about Sanjay Dutt, and then suddenly I was told that the refrigerator wasn't on. So I had to go in the basement to see what's up with the refrigerator. Popsicles and shit is already melted. It's turned into, it's basically purple fucking sludge up and down the damn freezer. I'm like, man, what the fuck? Can't blame that one on Tony Khan. But I'm sure if I keep trying, if I keep digging, I'll find something to blame on Tony Khan. But goddamn, it ruined my train of thought. I had a good thing going about, fuck Sanjay Dutt. That's the important thing. All right. Fuck Sanjay Dutt. Anyway, Christian Cage cut a really good promo, but it was like 5 different promos smashed together. It was promos that, he needed an editor. This is the same thing they did with Cody not too long ago. But Cody cut a really good promo, but it was too long and it was too many ideas put together. First, he had to explain why he did what he did to Jungle Boy. Then he had to heel on Jungle Boy. But he also had to address the MJF situation. Then he had to address Luchasaurus. He also had to address all these different things. Keep it simple. I know Christian had a lot on his mind, but, just volcanically erupting and telling us everything was too much in one promo. Of course, Christian is a master of the promo. I don't think there are any whack Christian promos. This one just had too many ideas. That's my only critique. It was too many ideas. All right, so I'm going to try to edit this thing. So Christian, it comes down to it. He was mad about the Battle Royal that happened 14 months ago. It was a long time ago. Back when they actually cared about Jungle Boy as a singles act. He lost to him in a Battle Royal. Then Jungle Boy went and lost to Kenny Omega. I remembered that. It was too long ago. All right. Too long ago. But he kept saying that he lost out on a roster bonus and a title shot because of Jungle Boy. That got him interested in Jungle Boy. So he decided to do some research on social media where he found it's a cesspool. And I was like, okay, now we're crossing too many ideas. Could have edited out the whole rant about social media. Then he said he found out that Jungle Boy was popular and hitched his wagon to him. Figured he'd, give him a couple of kind words, pat him on the back, sit back and collect a free paycheck. Then he says, people are mad about my paycheck since we started going into the stuff about MJF. We could have saved this for another time. Then he says that Jungle Boy, he was with Jungle Boy the whole time, giving him encouragement. And the first time he came out with Jungle Boy and did not stand in the corner with him, he lost the tag team championships. And he says now he has to deal with Jungle Boy himself and he got to get his hands dirty, and it pisses him off. Then he says that they went into the why he cussed out Jungle Boy's mom and sister by saying they raised a piece of shit. And then he said that he he wanted to give Jungle Boy's mama a chance to apologize for giving birth to him, but then said that he really feels like she wanted him to be Jungle Boy's dad. And he said, but Jungle Boy has a dad, and Jungle Boy's dad is dead. And Jungle Boy's dead dad would be embarrassed of him because he stood and fought, but didn't have the courage to get up. And it was really good heel stuff right here. This was the really good stuff. It took us a long time to get here about Jungle Boy's dad being dead, Jungle Boy being a coward, him not, showing fire and all that kind of stuff. All very good stuff because we know Jungle Boy really struggles with showing intensity. Then Luchasaurus came out there, and Luchasaurus corners Christian, is choking him. Christian is, whispering to him like, oh yeah, do you remember Marco? Do you remember what happened to Marco? And Luchasaurus is like, what? Like, as he's super big mad, he's choking Christian, and Christian is like, you were like a son to me. You were like a son to me. And Luchasaurus lets him up out of choking him in the corner. Then Christian hugs him, and they walk off, kind of together, with Christian giving the camera a little wink and a nod, like, I got this big dummy wrapped around my fingers. That latter part, the part with Luchasaurus, we could have did that next week. Everything that involves Luchasaurus could have been done either next week or 2 weeks from now. The part where he's talking about MJF, we could have did that next week. Now, when he's talking about MJF, he says, there's people who want my paycheck. He says, if you want to have my paycheck, try having a match people will remember more than a week after it happens. Try having a match so memorable people they name pay-per-views after it. And that was a very good line. That was tremendous stuff. But it's lost in all this other stuff that he was doing. That's why you separate your ideas. You separate your ideas so that everything won't get cluttered and lost when you have a lot of information being chucked at people. You want to make sure people have the opportunity to absorb the information or the moments or whatever you're trying to give them. So you separate them out. You spread it out. Decompress your storytelling. This is one of the few times I'll actually argue for decompressed storytelling. Is when you're giving people too much information to process. Like, you give us the why you did this. That's good. I like that. Then you just go normal heel on them with the whole dead dad thing. Okay, cool. Those were great ideas. Those things should have been sandwiched together. Great. You had this word orgy that Christian had going on here with this orgy of ideas, and people are going to get lost in this. It's like, it's too many ideas. And if they had an editor, or if this promo were scripted and written, or in any way structured, it probably wouldn't have looked like that, So you had parts where people could feel bad for Jungle Boy. He went full scumbag heel, which is the right thing to do. He didn't spare nothing. He just went all in. But the problem is he did go all in. He went, he emptied the clip. So now it's like, all right, the hook is apparently what's going to happen between him and Luchasaurus. That's the hook. But we just listened to him talk all this shit about Jungle Boy. We're trying to absorb that. I don't really care about Luchasaurus right now. That's just, I'm sorry. We're supposed to feel bad about Jungle Boy getting the concerto, and then this guy who he thought was his mentor was really just using him. That's all good storytelling. But we should be absorbing that and talking about that and focused on that, and then we add the Luchasaurus element. Because we could pretend Luchasaurus wasn't there for right now. And then the next week, Luchasaurus challenges him to a match or something, and then he can say, look, I will never fight you. I said all that stuff about Jungle Boy. I didn't mean none of that about you. Notice I didn't say anything bad about you. Or whatever the case may be. Give him an opportunity to cut another promo. Give him more time. But see, I don't know. I liked the promo. I think it was very well delivered. I liked his inflection. I liked his intensity. I just think he just jammed too much in this one box. That's all. Just too many ideas in one box. Young Bucks are back. Oh, Lord. And they were hanging out with Kyle O'Reilly. And everything's all right in the world because the Young Bucks are tag team champions again. They say they're the locksmiths of the key to the forbidden door or whatever. And they're going to join the Bullet Club for one night only because Kyle O'Reilly is apparently injured and we're not medically cleared to perform at the forbidden door. Kyle O'Reilly said that Sting should be locked up, and if his hands weren't lethal weapons, he'd sue Sting for what Sting did to him when he stabbed him in the nuts last week on Rampage. I don't care about this. And that match is not something I care about anyway. All right, so Malachi Black defeated Penta Oscuro in a pretty solid, probably the match of the night, for All Atlantic Championship qualifier. I think it was a top rope package power driver. Absolutely absurd move. Absurd move. Now, they actually did sell it, so I'm going to give them some credit. They didn't go directly into a pinfall for a 2 count. They took some time to let it breathe, and they let the clock go down, like the shot clock on it. So, like, the longer you live with the move, the more likely you are to survive it. And then he didn't even get a full cover, and then he didn't get a full kick out. He put his foot on the ropes. So I was like, okay with this. They did everything they could to protect that move, even though they probably shouldn't have done it in the first place. So that was cool. And that match itself was pretty good. Finished Black Mass to the back of the head. Malachi Black wins. Pac runs to the ring, has a little bit of a stare down with Malachi Black, and then Miro steals the scene by saying the All Atlantic Championship. And he questioned, is this God's apology to me? He says all he wanted was God, his gold, and his beautiful wife. And then he says that as he drives through the forbidden door, he's going to drag them all, the bastards and the pagans, and he will redeem them. And I was like, Miro is killing it. This is tremendous shit. He's in the zone with this Redeemer gimmick. This thing's tremendous. He should be the fucking world champion. All right? He should be the fucking world champion. With these promos and this gimmick, he should be the top guy. If he doesn't win this fucking match, that's the only prediction I'm going to give away right now. If he doesn't win this fucking match, we're talking continuously booking malpractice. All right? We've already fucked up Miro once by him not still being the TNT champion or at least being the world champion or in the conversation to be world champion. Why do we bring him back to put him in essentially another mid-card feud? I have no idea. Or not even a mid-card feud, another mid-card angle. Because it's a mid-card title. I don't know, but whatever. This guy's fucking good. Speaking of fucking good, Wardlow. Wardlow says he always gets what he wants, and what he wants is the TNT title, and he's going to welcome Scorpio Sky into Wardlow's world soon as Scorpio Sky is healed up and ready. Wardlow should have been on this show doing something. I appreciate that there was a promo. Cool. But he should have been doing something on this show. He shouldn't have just been in that short 30-second vignette. But they gave us something, so I can't complain too much. Adam Cole came on commentary with his extra medium shirt. And Silas Young came in to do the job to Hangman Page. Silas Young, of course, is a former Ring of Honor wrestler. Some people have thought he was the Butcher from Butcher and the Blade under a different name. I really had not thought about that until I saw it on Twitter, and I was like, oh no, they do look alike. They have the same, they're balding in the same spots and everything. The only difference is Silas Young doesn't wear that, I don't think the other one wears a monocle either. I don't know when the last time I paid attention to the Butcher. He was wearing a monocle last time I paid attention to him, so. Apparently, I don't think he's wearing it anymore. Anyway, it was a solid match. I'm not a huge fan of Silas Young, but it was a nice little Easter egg for him to be there. I thought it was very cool. And Hangman Page wins. Okay, so we're about to get story time with Adam Cole, but it's cut off by Switchblade Jay White, who says that he owes Adam Cole an explanation of why he can't defend the title against him. Then he says that since he's responsible for all this, he's also responsible for the Forbidden Door. and that he cannot wrestle Cole because Cole lost to Hangman twice. So he completely ignores Cole, marches to the ring to talk about Hangman, and then Hangman and Cole got into a fight. As that, Adam Cole jumped in to help Hangman beat up, get beat up, help Jay White beat up Hangman. Then he picked up the IWGP Championship and was going to hit Jay White in the back with it. He held it for so long, I thought he was honestly not going to do anything with it. He just kind of sat there and waited and waited and waited and waited and waited and waited and waited. And then when Jay White finally turned around, he was startled to see Adam Cole threatening to hit him with the belt. To save them from this thing, Kazuchika Okada made his appearance. He came out in a plain white t-shirt. He looked like a regular guy. Crowd erupted. Crowd did their thing. They erupted for Okada. They was like, oh, praise Jeebus. I saw people on Twitter talking about, I paid $700 for these tickets. Swear to God. Oh God, I'm so glad Okada's going to be there. I was like, well, I'm going to let people enjoy things. You know, Okada is what they needed to make this show work. This show doesn't work without Okada. What they're doing with Okada, though, malpractice. I mean, it's just, they're shoving him in a fatal four-way. All right? Not a good idea. But at least they got Okada to show up. So I'm guessing that they saw the injuries and said, man, Punk's not in it. Danielson's not in it. Kyle O'Reilly's not in it. There's a bunch of guys. Ibushi can't be in it. Naito, I haven't heard hide or hair of Naito. We need Okada. We need Okada in the worst way. They probably kept calling. They probably bugabooed the hell out of him. They sent him a text message in 4 different languages. They probably sent him all the checks. Sent him replica championships and promised to babysit his kid, whatever it takes to get him to do this show. And then the very last week, he's like, okay, I'll do a show. And he popped up, and the best thing they could come up with is a fatal 4-way match. A fatal 4-way match. That's what they came up with. There that go. All right, Jade Cargill, they said Red Velvet is injured, and they're looking for a new baddie. So they gave the criterion to be a new baddie. Apparently they're taking, you have to be female to be a new baddie. At least that's what they let you to believe. It says, Stokely Hathaway says that he wants the pictures that they send to be PG. To which Tony Schiavone's like, PG? What? And of course, Tony had to cut the shit because that's her thing, apparently. And I don't know what that means. So, there's a massive online response to this, that people want Sonny Kiss to be the guy, guy to be in the baddie section. And I think if you're going to have Nyla Rose in the women's division, ain't nothing wrong with putting Sonny Kiss in the women's division. It is what it is. There's no difference as far as I'm concerned. You know, Sonny Kiss is not a threat to any of the male wrestlers. If you didn't know Sonny Kiss was male, you wouldn't be able to tell. You know, he's like something out of one of these weirdo shows on Cinemax or something like that. I can see them doing it. I can see them, you know, they need to turn somebody heel. They turned Red Velvet heel out of nowhere for no reason. You know, why not Sonny Kiss too? I mean, what difference do it make? It seems perfect. It's Pride Month anyway, so. They didn't say that the baddies had to be female. They didn't say that. And the AEW fan base would really like for it to be Sonny Kiss. I just don't care. I'm waiting for the chaos of them doing it. That's what I'm here for, man. Go ahead and do it. I want to see the chaos. I want to see how many people are really going to get upset about Sonny Kiss being a baddie. Because I wouldn't get mad. I wouldn't care. You know? I'm laughing at the thought of it, though. Because that means they're more likely to, you know, keep it with an actual female. But I did see somebody, and this is where I wanted to bring this up. There's no reason for me to do this other than to shit on people, but K-Side Seats retweeted somebody who, when they talked about who's going to be the next baddie, somebody, believe it or not, posted Sasha Banks. And I laughed my ass off because K-Side-C's retweeted and it was like, oh, if there was a God. And I looked at that and I said to myself, these people truly believe that if within the realm of possibility that Sasha Banks could be on this show, which of course there's no, it would never happen, that her role on the show should be to be an underling for Jade Cargill. After all these people have swore up and down that Sasha Banks was the most underutilized, after main event in WrestleMania, of course, and main event in pay-per-views and all that kind of shit, getting documentaries about her and all this kind of stuff, you would bring her into AEW as an underling for Jade Cargill, as a replacement for Red Velvet. I love it. I love it. People are so stupid. I love it. You know, you don't understand how much I love this shit. You know, this keeps wrestling fun for me. People being stupid. You know, it's great. It's great. It's like you know, kids still believing in Santa Claus. You know, it's the dumbest shit in the world. But what can you do? All right. So Athena and Chris Statlander, they mocked the baddie search. And then says that they ain't backing down. They're bringing Willow with them, and that and they hope nobody gets in their way or some such shit. Athena still is not good on promos. Get Chris Statlander, she's present. One of these two has to beat Jade Cargill for that title. I'm guessing it's probably going to be Athena. If they're smart, it would be Athena. But you know, I'm not sure that they're pushing Athena as strongly as they should be. Again, look at what they're doing with Athena. She's been on the roster for a month now, right? How many matches has she had on TV? How many matches has she had on Dynamite? How many matches have she had on Dynamite? This is, I think, her second promo. This is how people end up ice cold on Dynamite. They're just names and faces. They're familiar faces, but there's no heat behind them. There is no character to Athena at all. She's not a character. She's just a girl on the show. And she's hanging out with Chris Statlander, who's just a girl on the show. And they're positioning Jade Cargill as being a star who's got underlings and all this kind of stuff. And she's got this winning streak and everything's going great for her. Everybody else is just present. You know? So, there that go. Marina Shafir and Toni Storm have a match, I guess if you want to call it that. Toni Storm wins the match with a roll-up. It turns out that Marina Shafir is hanging out with Nyla Rose. They showed us why they're hanging out, so at least they gave us that credit. They say, yo, nobody watches Dark. So they told us why they were hanging out. I still didn't understand it. Even after seeing the video, I was like, I still don't get the pairing. I still don't understand why the pairing makes sense. So after Toni Storm wins, Marina Shafir and Nyla Rose jumped her. Of course, Thunder Rosa comes down in to make the save. All right. They're wrestling on Sunday, or whenever the show is. They're having the match. I would think instead of throwing Toni Storm in a nothing match that did not matter to set up a tag team match or something like that, which does not matter, I would have thought you would have done something with Thunder Rosa and Toni Storm in the ring, with them cutting promos on each other or something in order to build to this match. There's no build to this match. This match has zero heat, zero interest. Toni Storm cut one promo. Thunder Rosa has cut on Toni Storm. I don't think she's got any promos on Toni Storm. Now, they'll probably do the whole countdown show or whatever, and they'll do video packages and all that kind of stuff. But people don't watch those shows. So, sorry. You know, you have to be a dedicated viewer. That's like Elevation and stuff like that. You have to be a dedicated viewer to watch that stuff. That's why you make that stuff and you put it in the show. You know? You're trying to sell this match. I know this match isn't the main event of the show or anything like that, but every match on the show should have some stake or some story into it. Every match. WWE, AEW, doesn't matter. GCW and all the indies, they can get away with that shit because they don't have episodic television. But AEW has television. They're on TV every week. There has to be a hook to get people to watch these shows, or at least get them to be interested in this. There's no reason for anybody to be interested in Toni Storm versus Thunder Rosa. I'm sorry. Marina Shafir sucks. She's worse than Shayna Baszler. If you thought Shayna Baszler had no personality, Marina Shafir has less of a personality. I mean, she is literally an android out there. It is embarrassing. Truly embarrassing. All right, last thing. Darby Allin cut a promo, talked about Kyle O'Reilly being too scared to face him, but they're going to get crazy. So Shingo Takagi and Hiromu Takahashi will join them to wrestle the Young Bucks, Hikuleo, and El Fantasmo. What a joke. This is what you do with Hiromu Takahashi and Shingo Takagi. You team them up with Sting, and they're calling them the Dudes with Attitudes. Trying to play off of the WCW version of Dudes with Attitudes. But we know this is just WWE appropriation. The Dudes with Attitudes for real, Shawn and Diesel. I don't care if Sting used it with some iteration of some team in the past. When you say Dudes with Attitudes, you know what we mean. You know we mean Big Daddy Cool and the Heartbreak Kid. You know. But what is what it is. All right, so let's get into Forbidden Door. Let's talk about that because we got to do some cleaning up, and I don't get to bed till midnight. Man, I'll be so miserable tomorrow, man. I'll be miserable as fuck. I'll be miserable as hell. All right, let's get into the predictions. All right. Jay Whitehall versus Adam Pidgeot versus Adam Cole versus Kazuchika Okada in a fatal four-way match for the IWGP World Championship. Title is not changing hands in the United States. So Kazuchika Okada is just here so that people can see him live. That's pretty much it. The people just want to see you, man. They just want to see you. This is basically a David Ruffin and the Temptation situation right here. All right, that's what this is. I am Kazuchika Okada, and these are my opponents. And, that's pretty much it. He's not going to win. They're going to change the belt back in Japan. I could see Jay White probably pinning Adam Cole. I think that's what I'm going to go with. Adam Cole is probably the weakest booked of everybody in this match, which is a shame. But it is what it is. I'm going to go with Jay Whitehall. Next match, Young Bucks, El Fantasmo, and Hikuleo versus Sting, Darby Allin, Hiromu Takahashi, and Shingo Takagi in an 8-man tag team match. Well, Hikuleo is a loser, and El Fantasmo is a weirdo. So them being on the Young Bucks team, I'm almost guaranteed they're going to lose. This is a typical shit booked AEW match where there's one guy on the team just to eat pins. And the only guy on the other team that's going to eat pins is either El Fantasmo or Hikuleo. Darby ain't there to eat pins. Sting damn sure ain't there to eat pins. Hiromu ain't there to eat pins, and neither is Shingo. They ain't eating pins. So it's either going to be El Fantasmo or Hikuleo taking the L. And how the Young Bucks can just put themselves in the Bullet Club is beyond me. I have no idea. A triple threat match for the IWGP Tag Team Championships. FTR versus United Empire versus Roppongi Vice. Wait a minute. It's winner take all. Okay. So the ROH Tag Team titles are also on the line. Okay, so that makes it more interesting. FTR versus United Empire, which means Jeff Cobb and the Great O'Khan versus Roppongi Vice. I'm hoping that FTR wins this match. I'm hoping FTR wins. Maybe Tony Khan is going to get down on his hands and knees and say, please give us the IWGP Tag Team Championships. Please. We don't need them for long, but we really just need to put the FTR over. Please. And the Japanese guys will probably say, oh, well, I suppose so. Why not? No big deal. If not, and United Empire beats FTR for these tag team titles, I wouldn't know what to do. FTR are not going to get pinned. Roppongi Vice is there to get pinned. Again, shitty booked. You just put somebody in there to take the pin, right? Garbage. Absolutely overprotected. This card is really shitty because of that overprotection. So whoever's going to win is going to pin Roppongi Vice. And I'm guessing it's going to be FTR. I'm going to go with FTR. But I wouldn't be surprised if United Empire wins. Chris Jericho, Sammy Guevara, Minoru Suzuki versus Wheeler Yuta, Eddie Kingston, and Shota Umino in a 6-man tag team match. Shota Umino is there to get pinned. That's why he's there. That's the only reason he's on this show, is to eat pins. This is easy to book. Shota Umino is not going to pin anybody. And Jericho's not eating the pin. Suzuki's not eating the pin. Guevara probably could eat a pin, but I don't see them beating Sammy Guevara. Shota Umino is going to eat a pin. That's easy. Most of this stuff is pretty simple. Just boil it down to the most beatable person in the match. It's that simple. All right, Zack Sabre Jr. versus a mystery opponent in a singles match. Now, Bryan Danielson says that this one person is somebody he can trust. They will be a member of the Blackpool Combat Club, which means they're probably going to have some type of tie to William Regal. And he trusts them to take his spot. And they're vicious and violent and all that kind of stuff. Now, a lot of people seem to be it's going to be Cesaro. The other half think it's going to be Johnny Gargano. I am in the Johnny Gargano camp. I think it's going to be Johnny Gargano. Cesaro has been sitting out for a long time. I would not be surprised if it's him, though. Because, he's in one of those positions where he could afford to sit out. He's been gainfully employed for 10 years straight. He probably doesn't need the money. He's probably just working to work at this point. I can see Tony Khan, having to panic and needs to pop this crowd with something and add somebody to these matches in order to get the crowd back into this show from losing Bryan Danielson. And we're going to talk about Bryan Danielson's injury after this fact, as a matter of fact, because I want to talk about that a little bit more. And I didn't realize how much I didn't talk about it. But I'm guessing it's going to be Johnny Gargano. I would not be surprised if it's Cesaro, though. Cesaro will be a good pop. It'll be a great response. People will be very, very interested in him. Or it could be somebody from that Ring of Honor thing that they got going on, But I'm guessing it's going to be a former WWE guy. That's my guess. And my guess is going to be is a Ring of Honor guy. So I'm going to go with Cesaro. No, I'm going to go with Johnny Gargano. I talked myself into Cesaro, but I'm going to go with Johnny Gargano. Johnny Gargano has been sitting at home since, February? And I'm willing to take the L on this because I'm pretty sure it's going to be Cesaro, but I'm going to go ahead and say Johnny Gargano. Because everything is pointing to it being Johnny Gargano. Pointing to it to be Cesaro. I'm going to go the other way. I don't mind taking a loss. This is why I don't bet, Because I'm like, everybody picks one thing. I want to pick something else just to be different, just to be different. I win nothing, I lose nothing. So I'm going to go with Johnny Gargano because I think everybody believes it's going to be Cesaro. Thunder Rosa versus Toni Storm in a singles match. One of the only 3 singles matches on this entire card. Versus for the AEW Women's Championship. Toni Storm should win this match and win the title. She likely won't, but she should. The Forbidden Door show seems to be the right move. Toni Storm is used to wrestling the Japanese wrestlers that they like to bring in. So the Japanese female wrestlers they will probably bring in, like Yuka Sakazaki and Riho and all of them. Toni Storm is used to working with them. And she could probably get good matches out of them. And I'm pretty sure that's all Tony Khan cares about. He doesn't care about characters and anything like that. If he did, this show wouldn't look the way it does. He wouldn't book this show in the first place if you cared about characters or anything like that. So I could see him just saying to himself, Toni Storm is a darling of Japan. They care about her a lot because she was a big star in Stardom with her thickness. Ooh, cherry lip Paul goddess. There's probably so many lonely Japanese beta male, what they call them, vegan men or something they call them, just thirsting over the white meat. God, whew. I don't blame them. I'm not gonna hate on you lonely Japanese guy. I'm not gonna hate you. You know, I appreciate it too. So I see her winning because they're gonna want to appeal to that demographic. You know, they're trying to also get over in Japan too. You know, that's another thing. It's not just they're trying to solidify themselves in the United States. They're also trying to get over in Japan. So I can see Tony Storm winning the title here. Pac versus Malachi Black versus Miro versus Tomohiro Ishii. A fatal four-way match for the All-Atlantic Championship of AEW. I've already said it. I'm pretty sure it's going to be Miro. It should be Miro. Miro should have all the belts, as a matter of fact. You know, he's the only one that decided that he's going to create a character and get over. So he should be the champion. I wouldn't be mad if it was Malachi Black. But it doesn't need to be Pac. I wouldn't be mad if it's Pac either. I actually wouldn't be mad if it's 3 of the 4 guys. I wouldn't be mad if it's Pac, but I know it's not him. I wouldn't be mad if it was Malachi Black. And I wouldn't be mad. I would actually kind of be happy if it was Miro. So I'm going to go with Miro. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was Malachi Black. Tomohiro Ishii, I throw everything in my room. I throw it against the fucking wall. I never want to see Tomohiro Ishii. I never want to see him succeed. He sucks. He's one of the most boring guys in the world. Top 10. Top 10 most boring motherfuckers in the world. Can't cut a promo. Can't talk. You know, matches are almost always the same. Human tree stump. Awful. Awful, 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 awful. Absolute pleb filter. Will Ospreay versus Orange Cassidy in a singles match for the IWGP United States Championship. Well, the title being on the line almost guarantees that Will Ospreay's going to win. You know, like how could they get a singles match for the U.S. belt? They couldn't get a singles match for the fucking world title. Orange Cassidy wasn't going to win this match whether the title was on the line or not. But now that I know the title is on the line, he's not going to win. So it is what it is. I'm going to go with Will Ospreay. Orange Cassidy, they could shake things up by putting the belt on him, but for starters, Ospreay just won it, so he's definitely not going to lose it. And the main event to the show, Jon Moxley versus Hiroshi Tanahashi, the Ace, in a singles match for the interim AEW World Championship. Jon Moxley is going to win this match. If they had any balls, Tanahashi would win. And if Tanahashi did win, then we really would get Tanahashi versus Punk in the match that was promised to us. But if Tony Khan is a businessman, he puts the belt on Moxley because Moxley and Punk is much bigger than Tanahashi versus Punk. All right? I don't care what you think. Everybody knows AEW is a professional wrestling company based in the United States. There is not that many matches they could do that is going to be bigger than Moxley versus Punk. They got to do it. They got to do Moxley versus Punk. So Moxley will win. Besides, Tanahashi ain't staying over here that long. He ain't staying over here all that time. So forget about it. I do believe Kenny Omega will be a surprise and he'll come out to cut a promo or something like that. Maybe he'll walk to the ring with the Young Bucks, El Phantasmo and Hikuleo or something like that. He's not going to let this show go by and not be there. He's going to be there in some capacity. So it may be a quote-unquote surprise that he'll be there. But I fully expect Kenny Omega to show up. All right, now I should have talked about Bryan Danielson's injury because I'm pretty sure it's a concussion. From the sound of his promo, he talked about don't worry about his brain. Yeah, it's more like it's going to be a concussion. He's got a history of concussions, and AEW was smart to pull him. You know, finally they did something good. They had some kind of concussion protocol, and Danielson got caught before he could really go into this whole blood and guts thing. And they're going to be wrestling some really hard matches over the next couple of days. You know, hopefully there's not going to be any more injuries as these guys try to go out there and show out for the New Japan loving audience. So, Danielson's injury sucks. You know, him and Punk both injured at the same time, right after they both just came in. Neither one of them has been in the company a year yet. You know, so hopefully Danielson can, you know, become medically cleared at some point and make a triumphant return because, you know, he is one of my favorite wrestlers and I literally like him a lot. So here's to Bryan Danielson getting well again. All right. Thank you guys for listening. Like, share, and subscribe. Let me know what you guys think about Forbidden Dough and the Japanese Savior and everything that's been surrounding AEW. And I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.
MagMongoSlade. Best house I ever drew, Daddy.